Welcome to part number 4 of the product rendering in Blender series. This video will show you how to go from a simple cube all the way to creating this render of these TV remotes. These electronics product renderings are great to practice since they are often used in the real world to sell real products. Once you open Blender, delete everything in the scene, then add in a mesh cube and open up the side panel on the right here and set all of the dimensions to 100 millimeters. Next, set to specific dimensions, so the X will be 60 millimeters, the Y will stay at 100 millimeters, and the Z will be 10 millimeters. Then go into edit mode and select the 4 edges, and bevel these. Type in a value of 30 millimeters, and scroll to add 10 segments to this bevel. After adding the bevel, select everything, press F2 and search for a merge, and then go down and select merge by distance. This will just make sure the mesh is clean and there are no duplicate vertices. Then select the top and bottom faces and inset these. Then go to the side and scale them along the Z-axis so they both go outwards a little bit. Then with the same faces selected, add another inset and delete the top and bottom faces. Then select the top edge of loops here, press F2 and type in grid fill. Then select grid fill and go down to the little box over here and adjust it so that the grid is clean. Then do the same thing for the bottom face. Just adjust these settings until it's clean. Then go back to the top and select this vertice here and make the 3D cursor go to the selected vertice. Then add 3 loop cuts in the center and select all of these top faces. Then press X and delete faces. Next, select the outer loop of vertices around here. Go up here and enable the statistics. This will show you how many vertices are selected. So currently there are 38 vertices selected around this edge. Knowing this number of vertices, add a circle and change the number of vertices to 38. Then change the radius to something like 22 millimeters. And I'm just going to move this single line a little bit downwards here so that there's more room for the circle. Then scale up the circle more so it's closer to the edges. Next, with the circle selected, select the outer loop of edges on the main shape, press F2 and type in bridge and then use the bridge edge loops command. And this will join the two shapes together. Next, select this loop of vertices, scale it along the Y-axis and press 0 so it is flat. Then with this loop selected, do a bevel and add 3 cuts. Then select this vertice here and make the 3D cursor snap to the selected vertice. Select this group of faces and delete the faces. Then select this outer loop of vertices, check how many vertices there are. There are 16, so we'll add in a circle, change the number of vertices to 16, and change the radius to something like 4 millimeters. Select both of the loops of edges and press F2, type in bridge, and then bridge edge loops. And if this happens with your mesh, it just means that I got kind of messed up when it did the bridge edge loops command. So you'll have to scale it. I ended up having to scale it along the X-axis by a value of -1. And this will get rid of that issue. Next, move this line of vertices. Then select these vertices, scale up along the Y-axis so they are flat. Adjust their positioning a little bit. Then move the center one downwards a little bit along the Y-axis and snap the cursor to this vertice. Then go ahead and select this group of faces and delete the faces. Select the edge and it should be 16 vertices, the same as the other one. Add in a mesh circle The settings should already be how they were for the previous one, so they should be fine. Then go ahead and select the circle loops and the edge loops around the main object and do the bridge edge loops command. If it gets messed up again, just scale it along the X or Y axis by -1 and this should fix the issue. So now that the main controller button is created and these two smaller buttons, we'll go to the side and add in a loop cut here. Then select these faces and subdivide them. Snap the cursor to this vertice and select these faces, then delete them. Next, go around and select all of the vertices around the edge here. You can see that there are 16 vertices around the edge. So go ahead and add in a mesh circle here. Then rotate the circle along the y-axis 90 degrees and change the radius to something like 3.5 millimeters. Then with the circle selected, go to the side view and rotate it by 12 degrees. Then select half of the vertices and drag them to the right a little bit, and the other half of vertices, and drag those to the left. So it creates this long button. Next, select all of the vertices around the edge of the main object and make sure you still have the circle vertices selected and do a bridge edge loops command. Then select the loop of vertices, press E and extrude it inwards, and then press F to add a face. Then go to the top large circle, select the vertices around here, press E, move it downwards, and press F to add a face. And then go over to the smaller buttons, select these two loop of vertices, press E and extrude them downwards and add a face by hitting F. Then go out of edit mode, go over to the properties tab, add in a subdivision surface modifier, set to 2 subdivisions. Next, add in a bevel modifier, drag this bevel modifier above the subdivision surface modifier, change the amount to something small like 0.1 millimeters, add in 3 segments, change the limit method to weight, then select the edge of vertices around the top and bottom of the remote. Go up to mean bevel weight and type in 1 for this. Then go around where these buttons are, select these loops, and adjust the bevel weight for these to a value of 1. Next, disable the subdivision surface modifier for a minute and select the inside loop of faces for all of these buttons and add a mean bevel weight of 1 for these as well. Then reactivate the subdivision surface so everything looks smooth. Next, go back into edit mode, select the inside face of this large circle, duplicate it, and move it upwards a little bit, scale it a little bit downwards, then inset this face and inset it once again, just a small amount. Select this loop of faces and delete it so that there's a small gap between these two circles. Then extrude these both upwards until it snaps with the top of the remote. Add some loop cuts here. Select the inner face as well as the innermost loop of vertices. Make sure proportional editing is turned on, set to smooth, and only scales the selected objects. Then move it downwards so it creates this curvature on this disc shape here. Next, adjust the scale a little bit from the top view so that the inner button is a little bit smaller. Turn off proportional editing and scale the inner button up a little bit so there's not so much of a gap in between these two buttons. Then go to the large outer button shape, select the outer rim of vertices, and scale this upwards a little bit so that there's not a gap in between the remote and this button. Next, select the 2 faces at the bottom of the smaller buttons, duplicate these, move them upwards a little bit, scale them downwards a little bit, and then extrude them upwards until they reach the top surface. And do the same thing for the side button here, but move it along the x-axis instead of the z-axis. Next, select all of the buttons by pressing the L key while hovering over the vertices. And with all of these buttons selected, press P and separate them by selection so that they are a separate object. Next, go over to the scene properties, change the render engine to cycles and GPU compute. You can decrease the samples just so it's easier to preview. And make sure you go down to the film area and select transparent. Then add in an environment texture. Load in an HDRI. I'll link the one I'm using down in the description so you can use that same one. Next, I noticed that the buttons were pretty smooth looking, so decrease the bevel amount on these if they are too smooth. Then split the screen and open up the UV editor. Then with the main remote selected, go into edit mode. Go ahead and select the top edge of vertices here as well as the bottom edge vertices. And then go to the top and select these two top vertices here. Then right click and press mark seam. Select all of the vertices and press U to unwrap. Then in the UV editor workspace, move this shape out of the box here. Select these two shapes and press U and press angle base to unwrap them again and position them better in the UV map. Next, unwrap the buttons. So go to the top view, go into edit mode, select everything, press U to unwrap and select project from view. Then in the UV editor workspace, move these shapes around and try to center them in the middle of the square. Next, split the screen on the left again, and this time change the bottom box to the shader editor. Then with the main remote selected, add a new material, change the base color to a very light yellow, change the metallic value to 0.3, the roughness to 0.4, and you can adjust the color a little bit. Next, add in a Voronoi texture, add a mapping node, set to the object, then preview the Voronoi texture, set the scale to something very large so that the texture is very small. Then add a bump node, change the strength to a very low value, select invert, and plug this bump node into the normal of the principled BSDF. Once the basic material is created for the remote, go ahead and add that same material to the buttons. Press this page icon to duplicate this material and just rename this material. Then go back to the main remote material, load in the logo image. I will provide these images down in the description so you can go download them and use them, or you can make your own and use those. But once you have loaded in the image, go ahead and preview the alpha value and make sure that it lines up with your UV map. If it does not line up, you can go into the UV editor and move the shapes around so that they better line up on the actual mesh. Then in the shader editor, add a bump node coming out of the alpha of the image texture and combine the two bump nodes, the one from the Voronoi texture and the other from the image texture. This node should be a mix node. Then use the alpha from the image as the factor on this mix node. Then connect the Voronoi texture bump node to the A value and the logo to the B value. Then go to the buttons and add the image texture for these. I will also provide this one down in the description so you can download that. Then preview the alpha of this image. And then if the image is a little bit off center, go up to the UV editor, make sure the selected image is on the correct graphic, and then adjust these shapes so that they are centered where the graphics are. Then in the shader editor, delete the Voronoi texture, but keep the bump node and plug in the alpha of the image texture to this height of the bump node. Adjust the strength a little to be a little more intense. Then add in a mix color node. Plug the alpha into the factor. Select the A value and change this to the color of the principal BSDF and make the B value a lighter color than this. Then plug the mix color node into the base color. For the buttons, reduce the metallic to a value of 0 and increase the roughness a little bit. Now that the textures are finished, go ahead and join the workspaces back together. Go back to the shade view and then parent the button object to the main remote object. Then rotate the remote object 90 degrees along the x-axis so it's standing straight up. Next, select both objects and duplicate them. Then move them along the y-axis a little bit and move it up along the z-axis. And make sure to move it along the x-axis as well a little bit. Then add in an empty, scale it down, apply the scale, add in a camera, clear the location and rotation, move the camera upwards, then scale it downwards, change the focal length to 75 millimeters, and change the resolution to a square resolution. Then select the camera and select the empty, press Ctrl P and parent it. Move these two objects to a new collection called camera. With the empty selected, rotate it along the x-axis 90 degrees, then rotate it along the z-axis about 30 degrees. Move it along the x-axis to center the two objects. Move it upwards and scale it upwards a little bit to frame both the objects. Then go to rendered view. You'll see we still have the HDRI lighting. So open up a side panel, change it to this shader editor, and change this to the world. Then delete the HDRI and set the background strength to 0. So there will be absolutely no lighting in the scene right now. Then split this screen on the left and change the one to the rendered camera view. So you can have this workspace on the right to adjust the lights better. Then the first light to add is an area light. Rotate this light along the x-axis 90 degrees. Change the power to 8 watts. Change it to rectangle. And adjust the X size to a smaller value. Then move this light outwards away from the objects. Go to the top view. Then go to the top view and rotate this light around about 115 degrees so that it lights the remotes from behind, and the bounce lighting will light the remote in the back. Then duplicate this light, clear the location and rotation, move it upwards, and rotate it along the x-axis. Then go to the top view and rotate this light around so that it lights the front of the remotes. So it will be at this sort of 3/4 angle, and the light will be most intense on the top right-hand corner of the first remote. Then change the power to something like 12. Then add in a plane. This will just be reflecting the light back onto the bottom of the remotes. So move this plane downwards and make sure it is not visible in the camera. Now that the lighting is done, we can move on to adding a background color for the render. So change this workspace over in the top left to the compositor, select the use nodes and disable backdrop, add a viewer node, then drag in an alpha over before the viewer node, connect the image to the bottom socket of this alpha over, then go over to the rendered view and select camera here. This will show the compositor straight in the viewport. Then select the color value of the alpha over and select the intensity of the white to 17. Next, all that is left to do is render out an image, and once you like how it looks, you can go ahead and save that and use it for your portfolio, or if you feel that it needs adjustments with the texture, you can do that. You have now successfully completed the 4th video of the Product Rendering in Blender series. I hope these have been useful so far. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Make sure to go back and watch the previous tutorials if you haven't watched them yet, and stay tuned for the next videos.